BPW fans, thank you for joining us on the BPW podcast, episode number 4. As always, I am Big Joe Machesko, the voice of the pro wrestling fans, as your host. We do have another special guest today, Rotten Tommy Suede. If you don't know who he is, you should after this brief introduction. He was one of the stars of the movie The Wrestler. He had a key role in training Mickey Rourke to get him ready for that movie. He is a graduate of the Wild Samoan Training Center, a WXW Hall of Famer. He has won more titles on the independent scene than we can actually mention, and I'd like to bring him on the line for some questions because there's some things we want to know as BPW fans, and nothing will be off limits, and we'll see what Mr. Suede has to say. So, Tommy, are you on the line with us?
Yeah, I'm sure the pleasure is all yours. Let me ask you a question, though. This is episode number 4, you said. Why exactly did it take 4 episodes before you started talking to the biggest star you have in BPW? That's my question.
Well, that is a good question, Tommy.
All right, shut up. And you also forgot to mention there the WWE contract. I guess that slipped your mind. I guess you forgot to mention how I've wrestled in over 15 countries. That slipped your mind, right? Well, all we're going to do is talk about all these other guys that you want to put over on your little show. You know, you're a big-time podcast star putting over BPW. It's time to put over the real star of BPW. So go ahead. Why don't you do that? Work on that introduction again. Go ahead.
Well, very good. As you mentioned, yes, Mr. Tommy Suede has been in WWE. And, of course, one of the biggest stars that we have here. However, you didn't look too much like a superstar at our inaugural show last Saturday when Big Gene was dropping the big boot and getting the 1, 2, 3 on you. So that's probably a good place to start, Tommy. You know, with your pedigree and your training and your background, despite your personal flaws, I guess, why did you choose BPW?
First of all, I don't know how you saw that inaugural match with Gene Snitsky. We'll get back to that, but that's not exactly what happened. You like to spin it. You're like any kind of media. You spin the truth in your favor, right? Oh, I wasn't successful. I didn't look like a star against Gene Snitsky. I guess you didn't see the entire match because Gene was laying on his back, screaming in agony the entire match as I was twisting his legs each and every way. If he would have had an American referee who understood what was going on in the match, he would have stopped it. Would have stopped it when we were on the outside. But we'll get back to that. The reason that I came to BPW is because of the talent, the so-called talent. I've run into many of these guys in the past, and I know they're some of the biggest and some of the best wrestlers out there. And that's why I came. That's why any wrestler gets involved in any wrestling company is the competition. And the competition in BPW is the very best. And the best in BPW is Tommy Suede. And you will see that. You will see that because my history with each and every one of these guys has proven that. Brodus Clay, I defeated him in his very first match. Gene Snitsky, his very first WWE match was not against Kane. It was against Tommy Suede, and Tommy Suede won. Alpha Jr., Manu, the first time he stepped in a WWE ring, he faced Tommy Suede, and he lost. This is why I'm at BPW, because I'm the best, and it's about time that I'm recognized as the best. Well,
you know, you're a legend in your own mind. That's certainly blatantly obvious. And
wait. I need to interrupt you there. You're a real tough guy over the phone, you know, broadcasting over the internet. You know, oh, you're a legend in your own mind. I don't hear you saying these things when you see me face to face. It's a different story then. So why don't you show me the respect you show me when I'm around, okay? So you talk to me the way you would talk to any of these other so-called superstars. Act like you have Carlito on the line, all right? You know, I'm sure you would be talking to him the same way.
So you're basically saying that Carlito deserves more respect than you, Tommy? You kind of
no, I'm saying no. No, I'm saying you give more respect to these people because you're delusional. You have an understanding because you saw them on TV, so they're a big superstar. Yeah. Listen, I'll wrestle circles around any one of these guys. I've proven it, and I've proven it time and time again, so show me the respect I deserve. All right, fat boy, go back to the line of questioning.
Sure. I certainly don't. My intention is not to come across as I'm doubting your talent or, the...
Well, you're doing one hell of a job of it, all right? Let's get back to the questioning.
Well, yeah, facts are facts. I mean, like I said, you were talking about how the match should have been stopped. Yes, in fact, you were, in control of the match in the beginning when you were targeting Gene's leg. First of all, you jumped him early before he was even done talking to the wonderful Pleasant Valley crowd, so you can get an early advantage. Probably you needed that advantage. And then while you had him on the outside, you're talking about a stoppage, but you're the one that rolled back into the ring to break the 10 count. So I'm not sure what you were trying to get at there.
First of all, you look at it as me jumping Gene. Gene's on the microphone for 20 minutes while I'm sitting in the ring. I'm getting cold. Legs are getting cold. I don't know if you know this, but I'm an extremely muscular human being. I need to keep my muscles warm. Am I going to just sit there and listen to this guy yammer on? No. I let him talk. For quite a while, and then decided that was enough. And I targeted his legs, stupid, because it's the smartest thing to do when you're facing someone who's 6'7". You chop them down like a tree. It's the smart wrestler, and that's who I am. And you should recognize that. And the reason I broke up the count is because I wanted to feed him in the center of the ring so I didn't have to deal with this controversy with what you're talking about right now. But then he came out, the referee came out for whatever reason and allowed it. The match should have been stopped. We were on the outside of the ring for 5 minutes. The match should have been stopped. But the referee was clueless. I don't even know what country he was from. He was yammering in some other language. Who knows what it was? and then Snitsky clearly, if I know you said you watched the match several times, watch it again. Clearly screaming at the top of his lungs for the referee to stop the match, but the referee didn't understand him. He let it keep going on. And then of course gets a lucky shot and gets the 1, 2, 3. And again, that's fine. Things should have ended there, right? No, he decides to pick me up, put me through a table after the match, which again should have been this disqualification. The decision should have been reversed. But we're dealing with an incompetent referee, and I'm discussing this with BPW management, and it will be addressed.
A table that you brought into the match, Mr. Suede, again, if I need to refresh your memory, you were the one that actually brought it in, so, that's a risk you take when you anger Gene Snitsky. I feel no remorse for you there as far as the table goes, but maybe we can agree to disagree for the rest of the interview. There's a few things I would like to hit on here after we take a quick break so we can get a quick break from our sponsors. So, BPW fans, hang in there. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
So you're still looking for a photographer for your important event. Check it out. SK Productions LLC is all about video and photography. We're located in Northeast Pennsylvania and can handle weddings, sporting events, business events, proms, music videos, birthday parties. I think they get the idea. For your video and photography needs, head over to skproductions.com. That's skproductions.com. SK Productions with a Z.com.
Wild Samoan Training Center at WXWC4 headquarters, located at 309 East Hamilton Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania, 18109. The Wild Samoan Training Center has been a staple in pro wrestling for many decades and has produced some of the best athletes and wrestlers to grace the ranks of sports entertainment. Now, with their own brand, WXWC4's Blast TV, on the rise. Talent from all over has been clamoring to be a part of the new explosive era. WXWC4 Blast TV, on Service Electric Cable, Friday, 10 p.m., Channel 50, and on Blue Ridge Cable, Saturday, 1 p.m., Channel 13. For any questions, or even to buy a ticket to one of WXWC4's explosive shows, head over to the WXWC4 store at www.wxwc4.com. One more time, that's www.wxwc4.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Samoan Storm Alpha Jr. talking, and I want to tell you about one thing, and that is on August the 8th, the 6th annual Big Dog Daddy Fest is returning to Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania, and this year, as always, it's to benefit the Gift of Life and the National Kidney Foundation. So if you're not doing anything on that date, August the 8th, come on by the Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania at the Jefferson Township Fire Company and enjoy some fun, enjoy some good food, and enjoy the Gift of Life brought to you by the Big Dog Daddy Fest.
All right, BPW fans, we are back. As always, Big Joe Machesko having a very unique interview with Rotten Tommy Suede, a man who thinks very highly of himself. Again, I can't get that point across enough, but nevertheless, very talented, one of the best wrestlers in the world right now. So, Tommy, let me ask you this. Let's go back a little bit. Let's step back to your beginnings. You started with the Samoans in the Wild Samoan Training Center. What was that experience like for you, learning from some of the best in the industry?
Well, first of all, you got it right with one of the best in the business with me, but you can lay off the little digs that he thinks so highly of himself. Reason I went to the Wild Samoan Training Center is the reason anyone would go to a top-level college. Why would you go to Harvard as opposed to LCC? Because it was the best in the business. I knew this. I knew this going in. For the Wild Samoan is a Hall of Famer. He beat the hell out of his students because he was looking for the best out of them. And that's why I went there, because I wanted to be the best, so I went to the best. It was an interesting experience, to say the least. A lot of these guys in wrestling, here's the problem with wrestling is you have guys go and get a little bit of training from someone with a little bit of knowledge. And then that person decides that they want to be a trainer, and they deliver their little bit of knowledge to the next person, and so on and so forth down the line, so you have all these carbon copies of bad wrestlers. I didn't want that. I didn't want that from the start, so I went right to the source. I went right to someone with knowledge. And I started off right at the same time as Alpha Jr. I started off right at the same time as Snitsky. I started off right at the same time as Batista. So you put that in perspective. Look at that kind of class. Look at the class that we had. All of these went on to achieve because of the way we were taught. And we beat the hell out of each other. I have stories where I left the footprints on Alpha Jr.'s face. But that's because that's the way we were taught. We were taught to be the best, and we were taught to attack, and that's the way we do it, and that's the way I do it to this day. So I have nothing but respect for the entire Samoan family for what they taught me. And each of them, Samu personally took me on overseas trips, my first overseas trips. He took me on USO tours where we trained the troops. It was an incredible experience because it was a learning experience too. Each day I got to be on the road with this guy and I got to learn. After that, LA Smooth took me on my first international tours. He took me over to Europe. Again, I got to be on the road. I got to learn from him. Also, the Wild Samoan personally took me to the WWE, and I sat in the cafeteria across as he approached Vince McMahon himself, and that's how I ended up there. I went to the best, and I got the best results because of it. And that's what I need to tell anybody out there who's even thinking of becoming a professional wrestler. If you're thinking about it, don't take some shortcut. Don't take some cheap route. Go with the best if you want to achieve the best. And that's what I did. And that's why we're here now talking about this.
Yes, I mean, definitely. I agree with you as far as the quality that goes into the Wild Samoan Training Center, now run by Samu down in Allentown. Obviously, you know, you made a great point as far as that being the creme de la creme, so to speak, of wrestling schools. And you know, I do agree with you, surprisingly, on almost every point you hit on there. Now, moving into, you know, your experience with WWE, you know, you had you obviously spent some time there. Was there anything in particular that you picked up there, or any experiences that you'd like to share with us?
WWE was an interesting learning experience. What you have is you have all the guys, respectively, from their different schools, from their different areas, which are the best of the best, all coming together. All of these guys are coming down with the attitude that they're the best. And that's why they have these developmental camps. That's why at the time it was Deep South and OVW. Now they have NXT. Everybody's wondering, you know, oh, this guy's so great. Why isn't he going right to TV? The reason he's not going right to TV is because of this little attitude that a lot of these guys are coming down with that needs to be taken out. Because you are now at the bottom. And that was a little bit of a culture shock going in. You know, you go from being the top star where everybody's basically kissing your ass because you're on your way to the WWE to now you're at the bottom rung. There's so many different people and there's so many different styles and so many people are contributing to your learning down there. So I went in as one type of wrestler and I came out a totally different wrestler. It was an incredible learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's not very often you get to speak with guys who have been able to reach that pinnacle. And, you know, it's important to highlight here in BPW that, you know, you saw at our first show, we had Tommy Suede, former WWE talent, Gene Snitsky, former WWE talent, off of the Wild Samoan, WWE Hall of Famer, Head Shrinker Samu, former WWE talent and tag team champion, Alpha Jr., the owner of BPW, had his run as Manu. Tyrus, Brodus Clay. The very first show, Brian Myers, former WWE star. This is the type of roster, the core roster that BPW has. So if you guys are looking for good professional wrestling, the way that it's supposed to be, BPW is what you have to get out and see. Like I said before, stay tuned to our website, BattleFieldProWrestling.com. Follow us on Twitter. Get on the Facebook page for details about our next date, because this is wrestling that is changing the scene as we know it. Now, WWE, obviously we know you've been there. You're probably most known around the area for your role in the movie The Wrestler. You trained Mickey Rourke, that's no secret, with Alpha at the Wild Samoan Training Center. What was that like? And, you know, explain to us what that did as far as your career goes.
Well, it was shortly after I was released from WWE. Alpha, the Wild Samoan, called me into his office and said that there was an opportunity to train Nicolas Cage for a movie. Now, it was funny when Alpha called me in there because Alpha sometimes gets things wrong, and he was saying Nick Gage, which is a former wrestler that I know of, and I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. So when we showed up to the studio in New York, I had no idea who was coming in, and Nicolas Cage walks through the door. When I saw him, I told the director, this guy doesn't look like a professional wrestler, he's kind of skinny, and he said, don't worry, he's putting on size. And we trained him for a week, which was an interesting experience because you get these images of these movie stars, and Nicolas Cage, you know, he's playing different roles all the time, but the way I would best describe his personality in real life is if you ever saw the movie The Rock, he is that neurotic nerd. That's what he is all the time. The first time he got slammed in a professional wrestling ring, he asked if he should be feeling this reverberating feeling down his spine, and it just kind of sums up what kind of person he was. So I wasn't too sure about him for the role. I knew it was a much bigger budget with him on the role, but at the end of the week, he ended up dropping out. I know he had to do some promotional stuff for National Treasure 2 or something like that, and Mickey Rourke stepped in. Mickey Rourke was a totally different guy. He comes from a boxing background. He didn't know much about professional wrestling, but he was stepping into the ring, having a bad back, a bad shoulder. You know, he had just been in a motorcycle accident a few years ago and was in all sorts of pain. And they're like, okay, turn this guy into a professional wrestler in like 6 weeks. That was the test that was thrown before us. So that was an interesting one. So we worked around his weaknesses, focused on his strength, and I got to know him very well. Somewhere along the lines, we realized he wasn't ready for his first match, so he got the idea that I would be the guy in the first match against him. Now, originally, the script called for basically just a quick snippet of the match, like just catching the tail end of the match, and that's it. But because of the way it worked out, because my relationship with Mickey, that match got extended to a full match. It got extended to the locker room scene beforehand, and the Mohawk itself is also a contribution from Mickey Rourke. It was his idea because he thought it would be funny to see me walk around with a Mohawk.
It absolutely was. Your character definitely had a unique stick about him in the movie, and that's really an interesting story about Nicolas Cage and not being really able to provide that kind of role, as Mickey was the opposite. I mean, do you think that's the problem with a lot of people that think, oh, wrestling's a bunch of baloney, it's fake, things like that, and then they get in the ring, he takes one slam, and, he's asking if he's okay. So, I mean, what do you have to say to people out there that think that, this is all phony, this is, a bunch of malarkey, these guys are just, basically rodeo clowns? I mean, what's your response to someone that thinks like that?
Well, people have their preconceived notions of what professional wrestling is, and you're exactly right. A guy like Nicolas Cage came in with that kind of reaction. In fact, he went up to Alpha and asked him, how do professional wrestlers do a slap? And Alpha, being Alpha, holding nothing back, just hauls off and slaps this A-list actor right in the face. To which Nicolas Cage turned with a shocked look on his face and said, oh, so you actually slapped someone in the face. So he learned quickly, and maybe that's the reason, he whatever kind of malarkey bullcrap line they came up with for him not being part of it. Maybe that's why he was not part of it. Maybe he realized he wasn't cut out for it.
No, I mean,
to people that want to make these comments, I mean, look no further than a guy like Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle has stated that in 1 year, his first year of professional wrestling, he was injured more than his entire amateur career. So that puts things in perspective for you. Everybody again, oh, this is phony, oh, that, and it's, well, look at the match, the first BPW match I had against a guy like Gene Snitsky. What's Snitsky? 275, 280? Let a guy like that drop an elbow on you, okay? As a regular 180-pound guy walking around on the streets. Let's see how that does for you. Let's see if you get back up. All right? That's what I have to say to those people.
Yeah, I don't think those people would be able to take those big frying pan chops that Big Gene was laying on you when you guys spilled out into the crowd. But I'm just saying, not taking any stabs at you or trying to take anything away from you, But yeah, Gene's a big bad dude, and Which brings me to, this will be my last question, Tommy, because I know this is going to get ugly fast, given your personality. Why would you target Gene Snitsky for your BPW debut? Are you out of your mind? You mentioned he is like 6'7". He goes 300 pounds. Did you really think you had a chance in there against Big G?
I don't. First of all, I don't know where to get off. The way you start a question with me is all wrong. Okay. Second of all, I targeted Gene because of the exact reason you just said. Okay, he's the biggest, baddest guy. That's who you just described, right? Well, this is a guy that I've beaten before. Okay, Gene Snitsky was given his biggest opportunity of his life, his first WWE tryout, and who comes down the ramp right after him? Tommy Suede. And what happens? Gene Snitsky's on the ground, looking up at the lights as I perform the 450 on him. 1, 2, 3. Everybody in the arena screaming. I walk off the victor. So you're going to sit there and ask me why I targeted a guy that I'd beaten before. Why I targeted a guy that if you watch that match, I kept on the ground, who was screaming in agony, who wanted the match stopped, who had to resort to putting me through a table, who had to resort to fighting on the outside because he couldn't fight me in the ring. Because when we were just wrestling, I was tearing him apart. I was tearing his leg off his body, and I'm sure he had difficulty walking for over a week, all right? Because I didn't see Snitsky posting all his pictures. I seen him posting pictures where he's laying on the couch. Who put him on the couch? Who put him on the couch? Answer that. Rotten Tommy Suede did. And what happens if I face Snitsky again? The same exact thing. Or worse. Or worse. I might end him forever. Okay? Because that's what I do. So if you want to ask a dumb question, why I would target someone like that, it was to prove a point, and I think I proved that point. Many of these other guys, the match would have been over quickly. With me, Snitsky was on the ground, screaming in agony. And who did Dr. Frank have to treat after that match? Whose leg was he checking out?
Yes, again, I can't disagree with the facts. You did have a very early advantage. You dropped some elbows on Gene's leg, hit the big leg DDT, took it outside, still working the leg, which, to your point, you said it was probably the best strategy when you're facing a bigger opponent. So again, hats off to you as far as that's concerned. But the stuff that I didn't like, Mr. Suede, I hope that's adequate enough. You pulled the little kid's fake beard off in the crowd. You took time when you have this monster on the ground. You took time to actually climb the ropes and taunt. That, in my opinion, is lunacy. And I'm actually glad you ended up paying for it in the end. Again, no remorse for you. But I do feel that this isn't over with you and Gene, because especially now that you went out and basically made you've beaten Gene before and that he was screaming for his life, he's probably going to want to see you again. And how do you feel about that?
It's an open challenge. I'm not worried about Snitsky, all right? You're worried about Snitsky because you see the giant. I don't see that. I see a guy I can take apart. I see no problem. I see no issue. Okay? The reason I left him on the ground and celebrated was because the referee should have been doing his job, first of all, and counting him out. But second of all, because I could do that, because I had him beat. I could rip a stupid beard off a kid in the front row. Why? First of all, why as a little kid would you want to look like someone like Snitsky? He's a mongoloid. Look at him. Look at him. He's a freak of nature. That's what he was known as. He's a freak. Okay? That kid should have been wearing a Tommy Suede jacket. One of my sparkly jackets. That's what the kid should have been. He should be emulating me, not a guy like Snitsky. So I did the kid a favor. I did his parents a favor by ripping that beard off. God, do you want a kid to grow up and be like Snitsky? Absolutely not. So the challenge, if Snitsky wants to throw it out there, which I doubt he will, I seriously doubt he will. He doesn't want to go through that kind of pain again. The guy wants to walk. okay? He's getting up there in years. He doesn't want to be crippled like some of these guys. You know, he wants to be able to walk around, so I don't think he'd accept the challenge. But if he does, I can promise you this. He's going to be in a hell of a lot more pain than he was last time. And I can promise you, this time, despite incompetent referees, Tommy Suede will be walking out the victor. I can promise you that. And Gene Snitsky will not be walking out at all.
Well, BPW fans, these are very bold ending words from Rotten Tommy Suede. Undeniable talent, questionable character. Please, Gene, if you're out there listening to this podcast, respond to Rotten Tommy Suede and let him know your feelings on the matter, because I believe Mr. Suede has a different perspective than most of us. Tommy, in spite of our differences, I do want to thank you for giving us the time to sit down with us and, you know, let us in to your world a little bit. And, again, in spite of everything, no undeniable talent, undeniable power, one of the top heavyweights we have in BPW. So thank you for giving us your time today.
Yeah, again, I'm sure it was a thrill for you. Pleasure was all yours.
Very well. That's episode number 4, folks, here on the BPW podcast. This is Big Joe Machesko, the voice of the pro wrestling fans, signing off.